All games do secret things to help us along our journey. Stay tuned to find out exactly what they are. All games do things that we recognise. We're all conditioned to see when an enemy is ready for a stealth takedown or a tutorial is teaching us how to crouch. But secretly in the background, games are doing all sorts of clever things to keep us entertained, engaged, and, well, the opposite of lost. In this video, we'll look at the hidden tricks that games employ to ease us through our experience. Things like colour coding, music and background tutorials. And the weird interesting thing here is that we've all benefited from these things. But if they're done right, we'll never even realise they're happening. The true magic then is that we're being played while we, well, play. So it's time for the 5 things that games do that we never even notice. Video games might be how you take your mind off full-time education or learning sessions at work, but it turns out that every day's a school day when it comes to our favourite titles. I've done a stack of videos on the mental health and IRL cognitive benefits of playing, but the best games constantly teach us new skills and tricks, essentially turning the hundreds of hours that we play into an extended eternal tutorial. Just one where we get really, really good. Think of your most played titles and those sprawling skill trees and you'll see that you've been learning since day one, even if the word tutorial hasn't been mentioned for, 50 hours or so. Instead, you feel like you've earned these new moves, skill sets and guns, and that they've arrived at just the right time for you to make the most of them. What a coincidence. Whether you're learning to pick locks in Far Cry New Dawn or getting to grips with the Firestorm revolver in Rage 2. Oh wait, boom. These carefully placed upgrades mean that your brain is constantly in learning mode. You might be saving the world again, but there would be absolutely no fun in instantly being the Terminator. And your brain probably couldn't cope with the barrage of hundreds of moves, even if you were given them all at the start. I talked about it in my feature on the psychology of choice in games. Too many options at the very start would be completely overwhelming. And instead of feeling like an explosive god, you'd probably just walk away, not even dropping a grenade as you go. There's also the fact that your skill set constantly needs to feel powerful but balanced too, and a good game will gently disguise its rebalancing as you progress. Got yourself a new mega gun? You'll probably find enemies now have more armour and shields. Love lurking on gargoyles and using bat detective vision to see your prey? Oh, what a shame someone's invented jamming technology. I've talked about it in a previous video fully dedicated to the lies that games tell, but it's important to reiterate here that games are constantly cheating you for your own good. More important than the other entries on this list, in order to get maximum enjoyment, you definitely shouldn't notice these helping hands. Whether it's the coincidental boats constantly arriving when you undertake ludicrously lengthy swims in Assassin's Creed Origins, or the fact that Peggle's physics are weighed in your direction, not the gravitational pull of the Earth, games like to help. Games have full dedicated systems tirelessly working to make sure that you feel like you're having an experience that's unique to you, but also constantly addressing your needs. A perfect example is Left 4 Dead's Director AI. This is a piece of tech entirely dedicated to switching up enemy numbers, tweaking ammo drops, and even herding you through levels in different directions, all to make sure that you feel like you're having fun. If that sounds a lot like a theme park, I'll dive into how Disneyland has inspired video games a little later on. For now though, let's look at a couple more of the ways that games lie in the name of giving you a cohesive, satisfying experience. Maybe if I get them over fast, you won't feel as bad? Frictional Games has admitted that the sanity bar in Amnesia: The Dark Descent will drop no matter what you do, so you'll always fall into complete madness. The Xenomorph in Alien Isolation is told where you are, thanks to another Left 4 Dead style AI director who wants to keep you as tense as possible. And finally, your health bar is nearly always a lie, and you've probably always got longer than you think to survive when you're underwater. Probably. Next up in this list of ways that game developers are magicians who keep you entirely distracted is dynamic music. Now, this is quite different from just game soundtracks as a whole. Gaming scores are meant to be heard. Whether it's the work of Austin Wintory, Bear McCreary or Jesper Kidd, video game music sends us soaring into our happy places, enriching our experiences and sometimes, just sometimes, breaking our hearts. What's different then about dynamic or adaptive music? Well, this is the effortless switch between the calm, zen-like exploration soundtrack and the panicked "am I going to die now" combat track. And if all goes well, you'll have all of the associated emotions without ever even noticing it happened. Ever since Space Invaders' simplistic chiptunes got faster and faster the closer you got to impending doom, dynamic music has been making our hearts quicken for years. One game in particular, though, has an even more ingenious solution that redefines the whole idea of dynamic music. This Digital Trends article explains No Man's Sky's impressive custom pulse system. In a world of procedurally generated infinite planets, it turns out that it's quite tricky to bring a tone and feeling to each one. Who knew? Hello Games audio director Paul Weir explains that the Pulse system takes an entire album's worth of sound from electronic band 65 Days of Static and uses it to create custom soundscapes for every single planet. You'll never hear the exact versions of the tracks featured on the soundtrack album because every piece of music you hear is tailored to your surroundings, wherever you are in the galaxy. This creates a procedurally generated soundtrack that fits wherever you are. It's really a way of organising lots of small, granular bits of sound and music components and imposing a bit of structure and logic and control on top of them, explains Weir. If you start to walk toward a building, we will often start to introduce more melodic phrases. I think it's fairly seamless, and what variations of the melodies will play, obviously, is randomised. Usually, in games, we have an instinctive feel about where to go. That's because they're pointing us in the right direction the entire time. We just don't realise it. And more than this, the tools they use to do this gives us an unrealistic sense of how big the game world really is. First of all, we need to talk about Weenies. If you've ever been to a Disney theme park, you've seen one. No, stop sniggering. A weenie is actually the term that Disney Imagineers coined for the large, skyline-dominating structures used to help you navigate these big areas. Cinderella's Castle, Big Thunder Mountain, the Epcot Ball. They're all visual magnets that stop you getting overwhelmed in large, unfamiliar spaces. Lots of vast open games use clear visual signifiers to keep you oriented. There's obvious examples such as the Mountain in Journey or White Gold Tower in Oblivion, but other titles do this on a smaller scale too. I'm biased, obviously, but Assassin's Creed is a fine example. Most areas have looming landmarks to catch your eye and remind you where you are and where you need to go next. But these elements also help add to the scale of an area. Game developer Lexa Francis pointed out on Twitter that the mountains in Skyrim aren't actually that big. But by shrouding them in fog and pushing them into the distance, Bethesda make them feel epic. In reality, they're just hills. But your brain and the game is tricking you into thinking that they're massive. And perhaps the coolest thing about this is that it's come full circle. A follow-up tweet from Firewatch dev Jake Rodkin pointed out that Disney paints haze onto distant rocks on their Cars ride to make them feel further away. So, theme parks talk games about layout and games return the favour. Likewise, Disney's Expedition Everest ride takes this to a whole other level. As well as using visual signifiers to make the already huge mountain seem bigger, the ride includes foreshadowing, personalisation, and even an antagonist in the giant animatronic Don't You Dare. Hit the link on screen if that made no sense. And finally, on a related note, we've got colour. Just like Weenies, colour is a great way of directing players through a level. The clearest example is something like Mirror's Edge, where the paths you need to take are marked in red. This is such an obvious signifier because it's a fast-paced game. You need to make decisions on the move, and you never want Faith to have to stop and look around. But there are other, more subtle ways that colour can tell you what's happening. In the article Colour in Games, Herman Tulikin explains how the application of colour in physics, biology, psychology and art make it an essential tool for game designers. He even talks about how our biology can affect our perception of colour. Tulikin shows how different colour grading on the same scene can make it feel significantly different. And the muted presentation of a title like Limbo, for example, subconsciously tells you exactly what kind of game it is. If you don't believe me, check out Dorkly's Limbo with a Flashlight vid. And on top of this, colour can show progression. Games such as Journey and Geometry Dash use this to great effect. Colour can even tell us what era a game is from. Late 80s games tended to have a wider, more vibrant palette, but 2012, for example, was dominated by browns and oranges. No, it wasn't just your imagination, it was a beige year for games. If we flash through a variety of games on screen, it's likely that you'll be able to recognise all of them just from the flashes of colour. So colour in games is a form of branding as well as a way of eliciting an emotional response. And one final related thing before I go. Research shows that competitors who wear red uniforms win a larger portion of their matches than those wearing blue, because of the subconscious effect it has on their opponents. So if you've got a choice of colour in a PvP game, always pick red. And there you go, just some of the secret ways that games change how you feel. Links to the articles we discussed are in the description below. Give this video a like if you learned anything, and remember to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you know when our next deep diving video lands.